Welcome to another episode on the People Productivity Channel, where you are the product and a better you is a solution. Our goal is to bring on guests who could share information that is going to add value to you, your life, and improve what you do and how you do it. So today, in that vein, I have a very, very interesting guest, Larry English. Larry is the author of this book, Office Optional, which came out right before the pandemic. So you can only imagine, how well received this has been. It's a great book. I actually read through it. I think it's extremely well done. And it's from a pioneer in remote work. And Larry, why don't you introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, thank you for being kind. So Larry English, I'm president of Centric Consulting, and we are a 1,000-person management and technology consulting company. And we have offices, well, I'll say the word offices, but operations is probably more appropriate, in 13 US cities and in India. And we've been remote for 20 years.
Yeah, fascinating. So, you were a pioneer in remote work. And more importantly, I think you were a pioneer in building a great culture, which is all part of this. So why don't we chat a little bit about, in your book, you do share this epiphany you had working at one of the big consulting firms out of college and how that actually changed your life. So what happened?
Sure. So all of those, painful moments lead to good things. So out of college, I worked for one of the big international consulting firms, and it was a great school. I learned a ton and fast, but I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, weekends, and it doesn't stop.
It's unusual.
I was there 5 years, made manager, and I was looking, I was like, oh my gosh, is this it? I'm going to just do this forever and retire and die. And so I had a midlife crisis at 25 and talked my newlywed wife into backpacking around the world and really trying to find myself and find the answer to that question. And so in the book, I highlight that. I was laying on the beach in Bali reading James Michener, and there's a quote in there that basically says people wanted to do something big in their lives, but they waited till it's safe, and now it's safe, and they're 68 and living in Southern Florida.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I got to go do it. So I came back and I did a couple of startups.
Yeah.
And, I learned, ran into the same thing. So, one of them, it was all about, the guy was just trying to sell the company as fast as he could.
Yeah.
Not a fun way to live.
I did a dot bomb. That was an experience.
Exactly. And so I was part of that. And we got bought by a company that was publicly traded, and they were super nice in the due diligence phase. And then after you signed on the dotted line, they were like, hey, if you don't hit your numbers every 14 or 13 weeks, you're fired. We're like, what? We're like, what about the employees and clients being happy? And they're like, we don't care about that. And so it was so jaded. And I was like, man, why does it have to be this way? Why can't we build a company that's about people and employee happiness and client happiness? And it doesn't have to be about, it doesn't have to be this boring corporate sterile environment. You can do it. And so that was where the idea for Centric came from.
Yeah, and you were ahead of your time because you decided right from the beginning you were going to be a virtual company. And that was daring back then because, 20 years ago, let's just say the infrastructure supporting remote work wasn't robust.
You're exactly right. We're not the smartest guys, but where it came from is we were trying to build a company that had never existed before. And we had a number of ideas. And one of those ideas was, I think our employees could be happier if they had more flexibility in their life, if they didn't have to deal with the commute and, they could spend more time doing the things that they're passionate about. And so that's where the idea of being remote came from. It wasn't about saving money on office space or anything like that. It was really about happiness. And so,
tremendous.
Sorry, go ahead.
Tremendous. What an epiphany, right? That people could work and be happy. We had a similar journey, right?
Exactly. And so we've known this secret now for a while, and nobody believed me. And so I kept having to explain to people, executives all the time. I'm like, hey, we're remote and we have a great culture. And they roll their eyes and they don't believe me. And so that's why I started to write the book. We started to see the signs as you were saying, the technology was getting better and better. And we could see this was going to be the future of work. And so I said, let's write this, let's get this out here. And then the pandemic hit and everybody was forced to try it. And so many people were like, oh, wow, this is actually great.
Yeah. Well, you had the pleasure of writing a book. And you hit at the right time. So that was great.
It's a labor of love. Yes.
I love that quote from Richard Branson. In 30 years' time, people are going to look back and wonder why we were ever in offices. I hadn't seen that quote, but I think it will come true.
I think you're right. So I don't know if the latest news cycle in this past week was kind of backlash against remote work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I read those and they're like, oh my gosh, we're seeing this problem. And I'm like, yep, we've done all of those problems. You can absolutely be remote long-term, be happy, have a great culture, and be more profitable. So I think you'll see people work through that. I do think, and I talk about this in the book, getting people together is still really important. And so I think a best practice will probably end up being around a hybrid model where people have the option, and certain times you have people come in to the office to get together.
Get everybody together.
So I don't think it's the end of commercial real estate, but I do think it'll look a lot different.
And, this how to build a connected culture with virtual teams. I mean, ultimately, that is what it's all about. So let's get into it. One of the biggest challenges companies find is maintaining that sense of belonging and human connection. Humans crave that. It's an actual human need. So what did you experience along the way? What are the things you can share that, companies should be doing now to make sure that human connection isn't lost? This hybrid is one of them, certainly.
Yep. So the thing that everybody should understand is you can absolutely have the same level of deep, trusting relationships with a virtual coworker as you can somebody that you're going to see in a physical office space. Mm-hmm. And there's some things that you have to do differently to do that. You mentioned hybrid's one of those. Training your people on how to be great remote employees is another one. And so I'll give you a few examples. So one is we model vulnerability. Vulnerability is the shortcut to trust. And so when you put yourself out there and you share what you're worried about and your concerns, people will identify with you and form a connection to you quicker. And so we try to actually model that and train our people to do that. We want people to bring their whole self to work. Yeah. Meaning share your full personality, because when you know the people that you're working with and you really understand them, you're going to build a better social connection, and it leads to better work environment. We encourage people to take time to nurture those personal relationships. So have that video lunch with somebody, really get to know the person that you're working with. It doesn't have to be all about business. In fact, it should not be all about business, because you're going to end up with a stronger culture. And then the interesting one is resolving conflict. When you're in person, it's hard. When you're not in person, it's even harder because you can't see all those those visual cues.
That's right.
And so we use the book Crucial Conversations, and we've developed a training module around it so that people can build, use conflict and actually have a stronger relationship at the end of the conflict instead of hurting the relationship.
And that is what happens. When people actually successfully deal with an issue and then have a better friendship, it's so powerful.
Yeah, and especially with your customers too. In consulting, it's about solving problems, and there's always going to be problems along the way. So if you have those tools on how to work with the customer to get them through that and build a stronger relationship, you're going to do well.
Yeah, I love in the book you talk about the leadership meeting, where the leaders show their vulnerability by maybe bringing up a picture from when they were young where they look really stupid or something, right? Showing their whole self.
Well, the funny thing about that is they don't know it's coming. And so,
oh God, you're kidding.
No. So what we do is we'll reach out to their significant other, unbeknownst to them.
That's great.
We will try to get the worst photo that we can of them. And so, in between a PowerPoint deck or a presentation, we'll pop that up, and they're always surprised. So yeah, we like to keep everybody humble.
Yeah. No, it's perfect. I mean, vulnerability, God, the amount of research, proof, and evidence of the power of vulnerability is amazing. And it's probably one of the strongest leadership tools. But in terms of building relationships for every individual, it really matters.
And I was terrible at it. So I was in this group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and you're with 9 other CEOs, and they call you out on what you're bad at. And it was just a big blind spot. And they're like, look, I feel more connected to you when you share and you are vulnerable. And I'm like, oh, big epiphany, but it's really hard when you push up against that and you're not used to doing it. But I noticed the more, the better I got at it, I was building stronger connections.
Yeah. And, I think many of us learned not to be vulnerable along the way. It wasn't certainly valued as a society when I was growing up.
And what's interesting is you, as in a company, as a leadership team, you have to make it okay. You have to make it safe for people to do that. Because you're going to have so if somebody's afraid to admit, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how to do that, and they hide it, there's going to be a poor result. You want them to feel safe to open up that, hey, I'm a little worried about this. Can you give me some assistance? You're going to have a stronger team and stronger individuals by doing it.
Yeah. And actually you're going to get things done the way they're supposed to be done. Because there were a lot of, I can't tell you the number of times, a project or program would be struggling and somebody'd say, I saw him going down that road. I just didn't think it was the right thing to do. And they didn't speak up because they're worried about the backlash, and it all could have been avoided.
That's absolutely right. So I love Patrick Lencioni's stuff, Five Dysfunctions of a Team and Getting Naked, because he lays out those principles so well. And if you can get to that highest degree of trust and team dynamics, you just execute so much better. It's almost effortless.
It's almost effortless. Yeah. Having, an organization in a state of flow. What do you think the costliest mistakes are that companies are making out there and people need to avoid right now?
Do you mean about virtual?
Yeah. Being in this virtual or now hybrid, because, now they're getting in the back to work, some homes, some work, trying to figure out how to blend this and make it work right.
Yeah. So I'll give you two things. One I really screwed up. The first one is trust. So trusting your employees.
Uh-huh.
So many, I would talk to executives and they're like, no, I can never do remote because I can't see them. I can't trust that they're, working. I'm like, no, that's not, that is not the issue. The issue is the exact opposite. They end up working too much when they're remote. And so I would just plead with people, please, you can put in software tools or processes to make sure somebody's sitting at their desk at an exact right time.
Yep.
Exactly wrong thing to do.
That's that same presenteeism issue that you had in offices, right? Present, but not productive. Crazy.
Absolutely. And so there's actually been a ton of research done on this before the pandemic about, trusting your employees and when, in a virtual environment. And there's actually an ROI. You make more money when you do it. And people don't realize it, because what happens is employees feel trusted, they're happier, they're more engaged. Then they'll take better care of your customers. You have a better culture, you have lower retention, and it leads to better profitability.
Yeah.
So the second one that I will tell you that I personally made for the longest time is we really skimped on technology tools. So they were terrible when we first started being remote. And so maybe that was why, but really resisted it for the longest period of time. And once we put in great collaboration tools, I was blown away with how much more efficient and productive we were. But then and the other thing that's not as obvious is software tools, the right collaboration tools can help you actually build your culture, and it's not intuitive. So, giving you an example, when you can see an entire chat thread or, a new employee joins us, they can see everything that's been discussed. They can see how you treat each other and what your culture is. And so you're training them on your culture as an example. And then another example is we're able to create these virtual teams. And I use the example of all the veterans that are in our company. One guy was like, I think there's a couple, I've seen him at these meetings. And so he created a virtual team for all the veterans. And he was blown away with how many of these guys there were, and the guys and gals in the company. And they started to put that together, and immediately they loved it. I didn't understand this, but apparently the first thing you do is you make fun of the other person's branch of the military that they're in and give them crap. But what we now find is as soon as a veteran joins us, we make them part of that team, and they have an immediate sense of belonging to the company and to the culture. So, I would please spend the money to get really good collaboration tools if you're going to be virtual.
Yeah. Oh, no question about it. And the tools are so much better now than they were back then.
Exactly.
What do you do to build strong virtual relationships with your clients?
So a couple of things. We've covered vulnerability. And I mentioned, if you haven't read Getting Naked,
Mhm.
that is a great book for if you're in the services industry.
Yeah.
Um, but basically the concept is very similar. You build deeper relationships by both of you putting yourself out there. And so we'll actually have Getting Naked lunches with our customers, and it's really getting to know each other on a personal level. So you build that level of trust, and you're going to have that stronger relationship. And then for us, our core purpose is to create unmatched experiences for our customers
Mhm.
and our employees. And it's just, doing kind, generous, thoughtful things, not because you want anything for it. You just want to create a better environment. And that goes a long way for us to creating deeper relationships.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, you guys really have, I think, set a pretty high bar, you know. What should team members do to be a great virtual team member? Some of the
Yeah,
things, right? Maybe, doing some nice things for people, acts of kindness.
those are great. There's a number of things that you can do. In addition to the things that we talked about, which are those core skills a virtual, worker needs to have,
Mhm.
uh, be a contributor. So make sure you're putting out helpful content, responding to your coworkers in a timely manner. If you're using the software tools, make sure you're posting out there and sharing your knowledge and putting it out there. When you are working virtually, there's a huge temptation to multitask. And so we really try to train people, please don't. It's so easy to do. You're on that conference call, they're not talking to you. I'm going to answer these 5 emails really fast. You lose effectiveness as a team overall. And so you got to train yourself, and it takes some discipline to do it. I still occasionally find myself doing it. And,
Me too. Occasionally, I'm very aware of that.
um,
Right.
and then the thing I would add is in a company where culture is so important, learn what your core values are, truly learn them, and then live them. And that makes such a big difference.
Yeah. Um, and you gotta, keep opening up the values, making them better over time if you need to, right? Depending on what's happening.
Exactly right. And what I will tell you is we're about culture first as an organization. And as we started to grow, we were very worried that we were going to, I couldn't talk to everybody and spend time with them as we continued to grow. And so we were very worried we were going to lose our culture along the way. And
Hmm.
so we kind of studied companies that had scaled, and, what was the secret to that? And, one was having leaders that, demonstrated and lived your culture, because then the organization could scale. And the other thing that we did is we actually created a training day. It's a day-and-a-half session where we fly everybody into a city. Right now it's virtual,
Yeah.
but where we train everybody. We spend a day and a half of an investment of bringing our top leaders in the company and to train people in our culture.
Yeah. No, you guys do it right. You really do. And you also care about people having work-life balance, right? Because it's very easy to not unplug. So,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Oh gosh. I see this so many times, I'm like, oh my gosh, please stop. Organizations like, I'm going to get the most out of this person I can, and you burn them out, and you don't make it okay for them to go on vacation. We do the exact opposite. We have a very generous vacation policy. It's unlimited basically. So it's up
Mhm.
to you to self-manage it, and we trust you to take the time that you need. But we want and we encourage people to take vacation as an example. We want people to stay fresh. I want them to, in the middle of the day, do the thing that re-energizes them. So you just have to make it okay as an organization and make it a priority, because, we want people to retire with us. And so that's a long time. And you have a lot going on in your life. So, you want people perform better when they're energized and they feel balance in their life.
Yeah, I agree. Um, you've gone out of your way to build a great culture, and a lot of it also is hiring for fit, right? What do you do during the hiring process?
Sure. So what we've done is we tried to break it up into the attributes that had to be in the person's DNA that we cannot teach, because we found there were a few of those things that it just would take too long to try and train somebody. And so when we are in the hiring process, we screen for 50% skills and 50% culture fit, and we
Okay.
figured out those things that things that we can teach people that's they don't have to have it coming in, and the things that they absolutely have to have. And in the book, I use the example of Southwest. If you've flown Southwest, you know
Oh, I love Southwest.
the service is great, right? Every person you interact at Southwest, you know you're going to have a fun experience, right? Well, they screen for that. And that's the example for us is, as a consulting organization, as an example, we look for people that are humble, because customers hate arrogance, especially when you're giving them advice. And so we found that if somebody is not humble, it just takes too long to try and teach that. And so we look for people that are very humble, as an example.
Yeah. And, that's interesting. So you have specific questions you're asking to screen for that?
We do. And we also, we do get criticized that our interview process takes longer. And it does, because the thing that we've learned is the second you start to compromise, your culture starts to go downhill. And so what that means is, it's always out there. There's that business pressure of, I've got to fill this role tomorrow. The client's jumping up and down. This person isn't quite right. Not quite a culture fit, but I'm going to hire him. The second you start to do that.
Oh, disaster. I agree with you.
And so you're going to grow a little bit slower as an organization, but we're okay with that.
Yeah, fantastic. And you call them your culture amplifiers?
Yeah, so it's funny. So as an example, what I do when somebody joins us and we send them through the training, we say now, you are a culture protector. Your job is to make sure that we hire people that are a culture fit for us. And so you can tell we're very serious about making sure our culture is great.
Everybody wants to be in a great culture, and protecting it. Yeah, that's an important job. So you send them to a day and a half of training, all your leaders. And what do you cover during that day and a half? Do you bring everybody in?
Sorry. So we do both. We train every employee on our culture. And a lot of it is, it's not like we're reading from an HR manual. It's actually very fun. It's very team oriented. And it's highly energized. So we train everybody on our culture. And then what we found for our leaders is we needed to train them as well, not only on leadership skills. So there's lots of training that you can buy on how to be a leader. But what we found is we need to train people on how to lead with our value system. And so we've developed coursework and we use a lot of case studies from our own, our many years of experience. And we bring people in and we train them, up and coming leaders, on here's how you lead with our value system.
Well, I love how detailed you have been in terms of, understanding what a great culture is, defining it, embedding it, maintaining it. Really, really important. And that has helped you through this whole virtual work experience, because you built that cohesion and that oneness.
You are exactly right. So the thing that I learned is, I think that our culture is actually stronger because we're virtual. And the reason for that is, you have to overcompensate. You have to go out of your way to make sure you're building those deep personal relationships. And along the way, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I think our culture is better because of it.
Yeah. And that's why you have a chapter in the book, Building Culture Never Ends.
You should treat it just like your business strategy, where it's this living set of rules and how you operate, and you just treat it as, hey, we're going to get better and better at this. So everything changes. And when people come in, we want them to bring new ideas to us, because, you're kind of blinded by, you've been there. And so people come from the outside and they're like, why do you guys do that? And we're like, I don't know. Let's fix that. And so the other thing is, we have elaborate feedback mechanisms.
I was just going to ask you that. How do you get the new ideas to continuously improve what you're doing?
Yeah. And so we have multiple ways that we're surveying people. So we have an internal survey that uses Net Promoter Score, NPS, and there's free format. And so some of the best ideas that have improved our culture over the years have come from those surveys. And then I hated it at first, but all the external sites as well. So like Glassdoor, where there's anonymous posting sites, people are very candid out there.
Yeah.
And of course, you're going to get people that feel jaded and they put some stuff out there that's not fair or true. But you can get a good overall sentiment of, hey, there's a lot of people feeling this. This is probably something we need to look into. But if you're, truly living your values and your culture, every organization is open now. And so, put yourself out there and continuously improve.
Yeah. Culture is external now. I think that's
Exactly.
what's changed in the world. And actually, culture is a competitive advantage because it allows you to hire and retain the best people.
It's been our secret sauce. I couldn't agree more. And they stay longer too. So our retention is very low.
I mean, that's having, you hire
Retention rate, sorry.
with you is a lofty goal.
I'm sorry.
I say to hire people so they retire with you is really a lofty goal in an era where companies churn through people. I love what you're doing. I think it's great.
Thank you. It's a happier way to live your life, and it is truly family for me. So when we do get together in person, it's not like you're dreading going to this corporate event. It is like a family reunion. It is a ton of fun.
Yeah. And you guys do a lot of things to have fun online with one another, don't you?
Yeah. So we try to be very creative on the virtual aspect of that. It's interesting. I've been watching a lot of companies. They'll put out, I don't know if you've seen this, like the top 10 lists of how to have a great remote culture. People that are just doing, they're like, well, you have a virtual happy hour and you're done. And they're like, no.
Oh.
The reality is the virtual culture is, when I sat down to write the book, I hadn't fully realized all the things that we do to have a great remote culture. And it is integrated across your people, your operations, and your technology. And it's integrated into everything that we do. And I don't say that to scare people. I'm just saying, if you're going to really adopt it, it's hard work, but it will pay off. You're just going to have to work at it.
Yeah, it's enduring and it is work. But the fact that it will survive and outlive the people who created it is what's so incredible.
That is our hope. Absolutely. I mean, where the average life of a corporation anymore is going, was it 50 years, I think, and it's like continuing to go down. And so, we've set the company up to be multi-generational, but certainly a big part of that is continuing to innovate because every industry is being disrupted, obviously.
Yeah. And what do you do to share stories, these great stories, maybe unforgettable memories and things?
Yeah, sure. So we actually brought in a person who, she spoke to one of our meetings. She wrote a book called Stories That Stick, Kendra Hall, and she was an expert storyteller. And we didn't realize it, but that's one of the great ways that you pass down your culture. And so in the training that I mentioned to you, we bring in a lot of the top leaders in the company, and it's a lot of storytelling throughout the day. And it's sharing those fun, stories that help people understand your culture. And that was a secondary reason that I wrote the book, is I wanted to be able to share it with all of our new employees coming in. And so the book is loaded with stories, a lot of them embarrassing, about the mistakes that we've made along the way and trying to get this remote culture right. And so, one example in there I put of one of the poor gentlemen made the mistake of telling me that he was taking some conference calls in the shower. And
Oh my God.
yeah, so he would when he run short on time from his workout, he had to be somewhere. His solution was to take the conference call and put his phone up on the ledge and on mute, obviously. And then when he got called on, he'd turn off the shower and stand there shivering and answer the question and then finish his shower. And so he's never lived that down. And so that is in the book as well.
Wow, that is almost gymnastics. Incredible. One error, right? Oh my God.
Right, exactly.
You can imagine where that could go. Yeah, pretty funny. So, I mean, you guys have really done it right. Office Optional. I recommend this book, Pioneers in Virtual Work Culture. I do think if you care about culture, you should definitely pick this up. This is a worthwhile read. I read it, and we're virtual, and I think it's just chock full of really good stuff. You know, it's a recipe that people can in fact follow.
It was meant to be a how-to guide. So I'm
Yeah,
glad you got that out of it. And thank you for the kind words.
yeah, it's fantastic. Any parting thoughts and comments? Vlad,
Yeah.
what do you?
Yeah. I would just say for anybody that is thinking about it and they want to permanently do it and they're worried that, you know, they might not be able to, it is absolutely possible. Any company could do it. And, you know, please learn from us. The proceeds to the book go to charity, by the way. So I'm not making anything on this. This is, so go read the book if you're going to do remote, and it'll help you a lot. It'll help you reduce some of the mistakes that we made.
Yeah, you can learn from what others have done. That's one of the great things about life, right? You don't have to experience and relive their mistakes to get it right.
Exactly.
So Larry, listen, buddy, thanks for coming on. You guys were pioneers. You built a great company and a great culture, and we're proud to have you on the show. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Take care, buddy. Bye.